people connect the dots from taking a training, regardless of whatever training that you take, whether Enoverlab, whether another training, or maybe it's just a random online course, or whatever the case may be? How do you go from taking a training to then connecting the dots, which I presume that you're trying to connect the dots via, which would typically mean getting a product manager, right? I'll presume that that's like the dots you are trying to connect, right? Getting a product manager role. So I would just get the conversation started. I wish I have slides to present for you guys, but sincerely, this week has been super hectic, and I actually wanted to create a slide, but I just have my information like a Google Doc, which I just jotted out and wrote out, and it's okay, I'll just have it from that Google Doc and then share some of the thoughts that I want to share with you all, right? But however, so just give me a minute and let me present that. Let me present that to us. But while I'm trying to do that, let me hear from anybody here, just randomly. Have you thought about what you want to do after any PM training? Whether you have taken one, whether you're about to take one, whether you have completed one, maybe 1, 2, 3 months ago. What have you done? Okay, so let's do it this way. Let me hear from 1 or 2 persons. 1, have you taken a PM training? Yes. What have you done after that PM training? That's 2, right? And then what are you planning to do? So let's do it that way. Let's do it that way. So let me hear from Stewart. Let me hear from Stewart. Have you taken a PM training? Let us know, yes or no. Then what have you done after that training? And then what are you planning to do right now? Let me hear from Stewart.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
For me, I would say I started before I took a training. So I was already introduced to the world of PM, and I was already working in the digital bank business of one of the financial institutions, but I was not.
Interesting.
So I went to, so I was already introduced to it, but there are some things that are very strange whenever I'm like in a session, and so it made me to go take a course on it, so, or product management course. So I registered with Product Dive. So I did like a certification on Product Dive, and for me, it's been a wonderful experience learning more. I'm currently a product owner, so I'm trying to understand. I'm going to manage as formerly a product manager and now a product owner. But it's been interesting, and it's great to be in this session to learn more around it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Sounds great, and thank you for sharing that. So let's hear from one more person. Let's hear from, what do I call now? I want to call someone, say let me hear from, I want to call somebody neutral. Let me hear from Anu Luakbo. Hi, Anu Luakbo, Akinpelu. Hi, Anu Luakbo.
Good evening.
Good evening. So let's hear from you. Have you taken the training? If yes, what have you done, or what are you planning to do?
Yes, so I've actually done a training in product management, and currently I work as an associate product manager. So I think I've had like a little bit of opportunity to get my hands dirty with trying to build a product, just going through all of the product management life cycle and all of that. So yeah, but I think I just still have like a bit of confusion, and I'm still looking to like learn what and how to stand as an existing product manager. So yeah,
Hey,
that's just for me.
okay, amazing. So currently you're working as an associate PM
Yes, I
already.
know.
Okay, amazing. Sounds great. Okay, so again, I can see from the feedback from stewards and from Anu, we are having situations of people coming into product management and then being in a steward's case, she started on the job and then I had to go and take a training after starting on the job. I think a lot of people, or maybe not a lot of people, some persons start like that where somebody just transfers them into the role of a product manager and they have to learn right from inside the job, right? Or into a product role and they learn from inside the job, or be added into a team and they learn on the job. So, but yeah, what I'm talking today, I can see that quite a number of us have some general ideas about what this conversation is going to be, but I'm going to focus on things that I think are very practical in the sense of what you would typically experience. Now, this conversation today is going to make more sense if you have gone through a training. So let me make that disclaimer, right? If you have not gone through a training, not because it's not going to make sense, but it will be good for you. Obviously, you now know ahead of time that, okay, if I go through a training and I get to this certain point, this is what I should be doing next, and this is what I should not be doing next, right? But I just said that just to sort of like lay like a quote and unquote disclaimer, if I would say that would be like a disclaimer. So let me have this up here. So first thing I'm going to talk about is wrong step people take after, I don't know if I should call it wrong step, or things people do wrongly after completing a training. Will I call it things people do wrongly now? But again, I'm just trying to say that I want to start from there before even going into what you need to do after a product management training. Now, typically, I've been training people for two years, even more than 2 years before product management. But let's even say product management for about 2 years. And I again, from what we do, I tend to see what happens next to quite a number of persons, right? And then you see some other persons have a different experience. But generally, a wrong thing people start to do after completing a training, which you don't want to do, is to relax and be coasting. And I say relax and coasting in the sense that somebody finishes the training now and then just feel like, I am done. Like that kind of vibe. And so it's a wrong step to take when you have just completed a product management training. Before I even talk about what you need to do next after a product management, let's talk about the wrong things that you are doing or that you might potentially do, is to now go into a relaxation mode or coasting mode where you're like, finally I'm done. And I even today during the training, a number of persons to say, product management can be overwhelming. And, I think I said it today as well, that product management is overwhelming. So just in case you don't know that, I'm telling you that right now, right? And if you are new to product management, please hold that, carry that on an old body very well, because that's the reality. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Product management is overwhelming. Just like I said, this week has been super hectic for me personally because of on the job, on one of our products, it has stressed me out personally to the point where this morning I had to buy active Panadol, like super fast Panadol, 5K. Even me, I was surprised when they told me that the Panadol is 5K. I say, another Panadol is 5K. And I had to show my people that was doing training with this afternoon that this Panadol, they say it's active fast. It was my first time coming across it, right? And because I'd had like a really stressful week coming into this weekend or today. And it's majorly because there was a particular issue on our product that just racking my head has really stressed my head out. It's not physical stress, it's more like a head stress where you're having like severe headache, right? So what am I saying here? And that's the reality of product management. Product management is overwhelming. Product management is stressful. Please have that at the back of your mind. So let's first put that it is normal and that is part of the job. Obviously, there's too much stress and there's too much overwhelm, right? Which I don't want to go into, but there is a level of normal stress that comes with the product manager role. I don't think if you are not stressed on the job, I don't think you are doing product management, or maybe you are not handling a very integral part of the product yet. Probably That can be a thing. But so that I don't digress, I just said that so that you have that at the back of your mind. So typically when people go through trainings, when they finish training, because some persons have the feeling of, I'm done, I'm finally done with this thing. They want to relax and they want to coast, more like they just want to chill, right? And it's not bad, obviously. I'm not saying that it is bad to chill or relax. But the thing is that you can now over-relax and then over-coast. And before you know, 2-3 months has gone down the line in the process of trying to chill or trying to relax from your training. So I say this so that you put yourself on your toes, right? It's a wrong step to take. You don't over-relax after a training, right? Yes, obviously you rest now. Obviously you're going to rest. But again, you're not spending all your whole time doing product management yet. So, but let's even say you're spending a lot of time trying to learn and all of that. Obviously you have to rest, but you don't want to stay in that resting phase for a long time where it now becomes more of, before you know, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months has gone and you're still coasting. And if I start to ask some persons right here, they might probably had that experience where they finished the training and they just went into relaxation mode, and next thing is over relaxing came in, and before you know, and especially this is very popular with people that they still have their current jobs, they are still earning a good salary. It's very popular with people like that, right? People that are still earning well, they have their jobs, very popular that they would want to just relax, because obviously, but I noticed that people who are hustling and they are looking for a job badly, they don't relax. I think that's another thing I've noticed from at least 2 years of training people in product management. When somebody is hungry and the person is looking for things like badly, there's no relaxation for that person, right? Because the person is hungry, like, oh, I don't have job, I don't have money. So there is that, on their toes that they are always in. But for someone who is still, money is there, there's a good job, you're just learning product management because you're trying to expand your skills or expand your career options. There is that, just like Obasi said, comfort zone. You're chilling, right? But you don't want to do that too long, right? And there are some persons that they are not like that, but they're just still relaxing. Over relaxing can hurt you after your PM training. You want to just you don't want to over relax too much, right? And I'll talk about what you are going to be doing, but very important, let's talk about what you should not do. Don't over relax, don't over coast. Number 2, I just said it earlier that product management can be overwhelming, or don't let me say can be. Product management is overwhelming. Product management is stressful. Put that at the back of your mind. That is what it is. There's nothing. This is not. It is the job. That's part of the job, right? And if you have been at any of our safe space at Enoverlab, we have this regular safe space that we started out last year. And you hear people talk about their experience, and you can see, if you are listening carefully, you know that many people are going through that, some level of overwhelm, some level of stress. Obviously, it's not every time. But it is part of the job. So, and from trainings, right? From trainings, you start to feel that overwhelm, especially when you go through a proper training. Again, if you go through just one online course, you're not going to feel any overwhelm. Let me be very sincere with you, right? Again, I've always said this right from time that for product management, just taking one random pre-recorded course online can never be enough, right? You have to take something much more hands-on. And right from your training, if you take a hands-on training, like what we do at Enoverlab in terms of the training, you are going to be overwhelmed. Again, I still got that feedback today from our on-site trainings, right? Of that feeling of overwhelmed, like this is too much. You feel like you are jam packing 1,000,001 things on your head, right? And it is, like I say, it is normal. That's one. So, but now you don't want to let that feeling of overwhelm to influence your decision. So when people feel overwhelmed, they start to feel like, I can't keep myself, or see, let me just be taking things one by one, and I'll come to taking things one by one. There's a way you can take things one step at a time when it comes to dealing with overwhelm, right? But more importantly is how you handle that overwhelm, because the overwhelm is normal, right? For example, now, when you're learning back to back for 10 weeks, like twice a week or something, back to back, all the information is just pouring left, right, and center. You are trying to still understand one, we are taking another class, and you're trying to understand the second class, you're taking another class. So it feels like it's like a trailer load of things coming at you all at the same time. So it is normal to feel overwhelmed, right? But what you didn't want to now let it do is let that overwhelm now influence your decision. You have to like, I can't keep myself, oh, you know, that kind of a vibe. And then you carry that vibe into what you then do, which you then affect what your next steps, right? And typically, the other side of overwhelm is that you can be overwhelmed to the point where you now have imposter syndrome, where you now start to feel like, can I even do this thing? Am I sure this thing is for me? This product management thing, their stress is too much. Am I sure it's for me? Can I even do it? Is it going to make sense? Am I going to make money? That's when you now start to second guess or doubt yourself, right? So typically, when you let overwhelm to overtake you, you get into that point of now starting to doubt yourself, which we will typically call imposter syndrome. And yes, to a certain level, imposter syndrome is normal. To a certain level, right? It is normal to a certain level where everybody feels some level of imposter syndrome to a certain level, right? Again, I say that carefully because I know it is normal to a certain level, but what you don't want to do is now let it take over you, where you now start to feel like you are not enough, you cannot do well in product management, you don't know enough, right? And typically when you start to have overwhelm, there are two things that would typically happen. You would either just want to relax, which will take you back to problem one, or you want to do number three, which is now putting yourself under pressure by trying to learn everything before applying for roles. So all these three things on the screen, these three steps that people typically take, right, on the screen, they are interwoven, right? They are interwoven together. They're like, they affect themselves, right? So typically when somebody lets overwhelm affect them, they will either relax and start to coast because they feel like it is too much, or on the other hand, they now feel like, I'm not sure I can do product management. That thing is hard, or it is stressful, or it is overwhelming, or this imposter syndrome thing, or you start to feel like you cannot do well in product, or some other persons are better than you because you are just starting out. Again, you don't want to get yourself into that cycle. A number of persons get themselves into that cycle. You don't want to get yourself into that cycle. Just like I've said, one thing you want to accept right now, product management is stressful, product management is overwhelming. I think the moment you accept that, it saves you a lot of emotional stress. Let me use that word, right? And I think I also talked about how product management is ambiguous. So meaning that when something is ambiguous means that you would not always know what to do every single time on the job. Sometimes, right? You will not always know what to do sometimes on the job. You will not always know what to do sometimes on the job. So it then puts you in a place where you are stressed mentally. It is all part of the job. So just in case you have not heard it, it is all part of the job. Like I always say, right? Product management is a head work than it's a hand work, right? What we do as product managers is more of thinking, right? Thinking is a lot of ideation, and then a lot of things happen in your head before it comes on paper or goes into your documents or your PRD. Everything, a lot of these things happen from your head before it goes on paper. So these three steps, or these three issues, or three things are what people typically do after a training, which are wrong things. They want to relax, or they coast too much, or they let the feeling of overwhelm influence their decisions, where they go back to relax, or they now start to second guess themselves, second guess the career, start to say, oh, I'm not even sure this product management thing will make sense. Am I going to succeed? Am I going to make money? We'll start allowing all of these doubts. And the doubts are not bad. The doubts are, in a way, normal, right? Normal for you to ask, am I going to make money in this career? Normal for you to ask, with all of this stress, is it worth it? You know, you would typically ask yourself that question. After all of this stress, is it going to be worth it for me in terms of a career-wise? So, you know, and that's what typically happens when you let yourself dwell too much on that overwhelm, let yourself dwell too much on that feeling of, oh, am I good enough? Am I going to do well as a product manager? And again, like I've said, this whole thing becomes easier when you accept, right? So right now, you have to start accepting that product management is stressful. Product management can and is overwhelming. It's part of the job. So number 3 is putting yourself under pressure to try to learn everything. This one is very popular. I'll see people finish training at Enoverlab, go and take another training again, and then go and take another training again, and I'll just shake my head. And I can bet you, and I'm telling you sincerely from experience, right? People who don't take multiple trainings, right, and people who take multiple trainings, those that don't take multiple trainings go on to do faster than those that are running up and down, taking one training A, training C, training D. They just are going from one lesson to another. You are, in a way, wasting time, right? I remember, our senior colleague, Mrs. Finfolua, right? Mrs. Finfolua, when she had a session with us about growing your product manager career late or sometime maybe September last year, she said, you can never learn everything before getting on the job. So if you are writing, write that down. You can never learn everything before getting on. If you like take 10 trainings, 10 online courses, 10 this one, 10 that one, you can never learn everything because product management is dynamic. Product management is dynamic. It's not a straightforward career path. It's not a career that you just know everything. A, B, C, D. If you do A, you do B. If you do C, you will do E. It doesn't work like that. Product management is dynamic. Every product is different. In short, every feature in an existing product can stress you to a certain level. They can trouble your head and trouble your mind, right? It is all part of the job. So product management is dynamic. So if you think that you want to learn everything before getting on the job, you are just wasting your time. And I'm telling you from experience again, in the last 2 years, I've seen people go from our trainings to other trainings, and still some of them have not still come out of something tangible. While other persons who have gone ahead to go and get a job and go and start working, they are doing far better, earning even far more, right? I know persons that took our trainings in 2021 that are already doing way far better than when they started out in 2021. And then, one or two persons that started out in 2021, and that person is still trying to struggle to get a product manager role because the person went from Enoverlab training, one online course, another online course, trying to think that they're going to learn everything. And when we try to advise them, it feels like, oh, maybe you are trying to say your training, because we do training, so you're trying to say your training is the best. It's not because our training is the best training. It's just because take one good training, go and start working. Simple. So if you go and start bottling yourself about trying to learn everything before, you cannot. I say it emphatically with all sense of assurance. You cannot. At the end of the day, a lot of things you are still going to learn on the job based out of what you're working on. You're going to learn a lot on the job based out of the product and the idea you're working on. So what is more important is you understanding the fundamentals, which is what typically any sensible training is supposed to take you through. Like what we do at Enoverlab now, we are focusing on the most important aspect of product management that you need to have in terms of very core, strong fundamentals, so that by the time you're done with the training, you can enter into any role anywhere in the world, right? Obviously, it doesn't mean that you will know everything. You're not going to know everything. But with the fundamentals, you can learn the others on the job. So don't put yourself under pressure of trying to learn everything. You cannot. I say it with all sense of, even with running into 6 years of experience in product, there are still some things that I'm still figuring out on the job. At my level, I'm still figuring it out on the job. Not to now say you that are just starting out. So it baffles me when I say, well, again, some persons you cannot advise them. When you talk and talk, you feel like you're talking too much. So I just generally just leave them. So if you're on this call, you don't need to go through one proper training, right? And then go and start practicing. It's as simple as that. The rest is going to be learned on the job. And because every product is different, no product is the same. It means that the interesting thing about product management is if you work in company A, right? If you work in company A, if you leave company A in 2 years and you're going into company B, you might probably have to unlearn and relearn in company B because company B, the way they do product management will be different. Now, obviously, the fundamentals will be the same, but in terms of how they go about implementations within the organization will be different. By the time you go from company B to company C, another different ball game. Company C to company D. So typically, why are you now trying to stress yourself to learn everything from day one? Because it's not even possible. So go through one training, proper training. When I mean proper training, like what we do at Enoverlab, and then dive out there and start to work. The rest is going to be learned on the job, right? But one thing is sure, if you go through a proper training, you have a foundation. So you won't be surprised when you meet something on the job. The only thing that might surprise you is that particular product, the nuances around that particular product, because again, every product is going to be different, right? You're working in sports, different, health tech, different, education. Every product is going to be different. No product is ever the same, right? So these three things are things that you want to be mindful of before you even start talking about what should you do after a training. Be mindful of relaxing or over relaxing, if I'll use that word, over coasting, chilling, resting, any word you want to use. Be mindful of letting overwhelm to influence your decision when you start to feel overwhelmed. The feeling of overwhelm is normal. So I'm just saying that. And like I've said earlier, product management is stressful. Product management is overwhelming. Accept that fact and accept that reality. It is all part of the job. You can't come into product management now. As you know, as you grow in the product management career, you will typically earn good salary, right? Our role is a high-paying career path, right? Especially when you start to grow in the career. So you can't expect that somebody is going to pay you 1.5 million naira salary or 1 million naira salary, and you're not going to stress mentally. It's not possible. No work is easy, right? So you want to collect that kind of salary, you don't want to stress your mind, or you don't want to stress your head. It's not possible. Or you want to be earning $5,000, $3,000 in a month, and you think that it's just going to pour on your table because you want to do product management because it's easier than coding. And I've seen people say, oh, product management is easier than coding, so I don't have to code, right? But yeah, the hard part of product management is Martin is laughing. The hard part of product management is that head work. Head work is stressful. Just like I said, I had to buy a super Panadol this morning. That Panadol is 5K. When they even tell me the price, I say, this is a real super Panadol. 5K Panadol, because my head is literally banging because of ideation. And still, I've not still figured out that solution yet. I'm still racking my head around it. So you can now imagine, and then you are not saying, no, obviously. It is overwhelming, it is stressful, that is part of the job. So don't let that overwhelm to now influence how you now make your decisions and start to relax, or you now let imposter syndrome to come in and feel like, oh, more, can I do this thing? Can I not do this thing? And all of that. And then don't put yourself under pressure to try to, you cannot learn everything. So go through one correct training and then bounce, get on the street or hit the job and start to work. So now I'm not trying to scare you because something just popped in my mind that, hope I'm not scaring these people now that, oh, I'm saying product management is special, product management is well. I'm just being trying to be very realistic with you, sincerely, right? I'm not trying to scare you. Product management is fun. Product management is interesting. Product management is dynamic. I personally love anything that, is dynamic. Today, I'm solving one problem. Tomorrow, I'm solving something else. So I don't like any career that is very straightforward, personally. Anything that I'm just doing the same thing every day. But in product management now, you cannot be doing the same thing every day. There's a lot of dynamism that comes to the work. Today, you're solving problem A. Tomorrow, you're solving problem B. Next tomorrow, you're solving problem C. So there's a lot of dynamic or dynamism that come into the job that, just it makes you here, there. Your mind is everywhere and trying to figure out how to go about your product and the product that you manage. So it brings that level of what was that word now? This particular word I'm looking for. It brings that word of things are very spontaneous in product management as well. So it's not super straightforward like that. But I'm not trying to scare you or put you or make you feel like, oh, what am I getting myself into? I'm just trying to tell you the truth. So when you know what you're getting into a lot better, you know how best to approach what you're getting, especially for those of us that have not taken any training at all, or maybe we're trying to take a training or want to start or something, right? It just makes you know that, okay, this is what I'm getting myself into. And for those that are already in training, or maybe those that have just completed the training, you also know, okay, this is what I've gotten myself into. You accept the reality of it, right? Now let's move into what do you need to do, and they are very simple things, right? What do you need to do? They are very, very simple things. I wouldn't talk about something that is way something maybe one technical stuff, right? Nothing technical. These things are very easy things. Number one is practice, practice, practice. As simple as practicing sounds, people don't practice after trainings. As simple as practicing sounds, people don't practice after training. So for example, now, at Enoverlab, one of the things that we do is to give capstone projects. The whole idea around this capstone project is to get you to practice, right? So that when you start to practice in real time, it's in practice that you own your skills. If you look at what I put here, learning product management can seem overwhelming, but you need to instead focus on practicing what you learn more than even the learning. It's in the practice that you really own your skill sets. So a lot of what we do in product management can be theoretical. When we talk about it, it can be very theoretical in terms of theory, right? But obviously there's a practical aspect to PM where you have to really now do the real job. So it's in practice, that is where you own your skill set. So after finishing a training, the next thing you want to get yourself doing is practice, which is, one thing that we do at Enoverlab is even before you finish your training, we already put you into a capstone project where you have to start to do before you even end your training, and then you do it all the way, into your training and even after your training, so that you get to do product management instead of learn product management. So you want to practice, right? Even after your capstone project, you want to find, for example, somebody reached out to me yesterday and said, oh, there was a particular project he worked on at Futa when he was at Futa, and he has taken that project up again, right? He worked on the project like a side project at Futa, right? And then he said, oh, after his capstone project, what he just did was to go back to that particular idea and now redo that project again, but now with a fresh understanding of product management that he now has, right? I said that makes sense. So that means that you have 2 product management experience on your CV, your capstone project, that particular project that you work on when you were at Futa. So, that is practice. So he said, oh, he was going to go and create user flow, wireframe, was going to do a sketch, was going to conduct user research on that project again from scratch, try to understand the problem, understand user behavior. So he was just sharing some of these things. I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Go and start doing it and then add it to your CV when you are done with all of these implementations. So as simple as practicing sounds, again, from my experience, a number of persons don't go about to practice, right? It's very as simple as it sounds. Practicing is simple, but it's all about getting your hands dirty. Just like one of my, senior mentors will say, you really need to get your hands dirty in product management. When we say get your hands dirty, it means trick your hand inside the sand and do the job, like do the hard job of product, of building products, right? And this practicing takes us into point 2, get an internship or volunteer experience. As you can see, I did not say you should go and start looking for a job. And why am I saying, why did I not take looking for a job as your first route after a training? Because you have not practiced, right? It's more easier to get a job when you have practice on the ground. Now, obviously, people get jobs without practice. Again, I've seen a lot on this journey. I've seen people that got product manager roles before they even finished their training. Right? And so some of these things are always interesting to see. So I've seen a lot. People getting roles before they finish their training, people getting roles after. Some persons will get roles 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, 4 weeks, Again, different strokes for different folks, right? But you would be better grounded when you have practice experience. You'll be better grounded, right? And again, how can I justify what I've just said, right? Before we started doing internship at Enoverlab, someone like Matthew now, Matthew is like 2021 sets, right? During Matthew's sets, we don't do internship at Enoverlab. So people typically go from their trainings and just start to figure their way out. Obviously, we have support structures, we help with CVs and all of that, but still, there's a lot of figuring out they will have to do. But when we saw that we needed to connect a bridge to make things easier for people, we said, oh, let's work on an internship, an open source internship program that helps people get more practical. Now, when you practice, you are practicing by yourself, right? When it comes to practice. But when you get into an internship or a volunteer experience, now you're working in a team. It's a different ballgame. Because when you work in a team, again, for some persons that are on their internship, right, I'll probably call some of them to share their personal experience. It's a different ballgame even from their training, What working in a team is going to push you to learn, right, is, in a team-like environment, you get to work with other people. And we all know product management is working with people, right? And in that team-like environment, you start to see that it's not easy to work with people. And you start to learn how to use your soft skills, especially communication, emotional intelligence, and leadership skills, right? And on Wednesday, I had a meeting with a senior engineer, and he shared with me his feedback on the internship project as a mentor. So we brought him into the internship project as a mentor to look at from a technical standpoint, what people are doing on their project. And he had to share feedback and say, oh, he really liked how the product managers are inquisitive, they are asking questions, they are always wanting to know the technical stuff. It was like, he's really proud of them in terms of, he said even product managers are asking more questions than developers on the internship. So, what am I trying to say here? You go from practicing, personal practice, to an internship. It helps you become more grounded. But more importantly, I even think more importantly is that it helps you boost your CV, really. Because if you go into a job and you don't have a product manager experience, if you just tell them that you have gone through a training, it won't fly, sincerely. So if you say, oh, I've gone through Enoverlab product management, advanced training, blah, 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 I doubt any company is going to hire you, especially a serious company that is going to pay you a salary. And bad as a bad, a product manager, bad as a bad, right? You at least, let's say worst case scenario, say you are a undergraduate or you are a fresh graduate from school. Worst case scenario, they'll pay you 70, 80K, maybe as an intern. Again, I'm saying worst case scenario, 70, 80K as an intern. Ideally, a junior PM or a PM that is without any experience, maybe fresh graduates, would typically earn between 100 to 200K, depending on the company. But let's say bad as a bad, maybe you find yourself in one small startup, maybe they can only afford to pay 60, 70K, right? So something like that. Now, even in that environment, maybe it's only in that environment that they would just take your product management training alone. But if you want to go into a solid environment where they're going to pay you money, like confirm money, minimum of 100K, nobody's going to pay you 100K in this Nigeria and you don't have any experience, not even project experience. And that's why we always tell people to put their capstone projects into their CV. It is part of your experience. You worked on it now. You did the research. You spoke to people. You draw your user flow. You did your wireframe. You did prototype. You created metrics, your roadmap. You did all of these things by yourself. So that's typically what will happen on the job as well, right? That's what you're going to do on the job. So you add it to your CV, right? So I have seen people being afraid to add their capstone projects. I say, don't be afraid. This is your job, right? And ideally, I'm not sure there's anybody that added their capstone or anybody that has informed me that, oh, my capstone project was rejected on my CV when I submitted my CV. I'm not sure nobody has come to tell me that before. That, oh, when they submitted their CV, the company said the capstone project does not count. Nobody has come and tell me that before. So what does that mean? Every company is looking for somebody that have some form of experience, whether it's project experience or maybe real life experience or internship experience. Now, for example, the opportunity at Enoverlab for our trainees is that they do their capstone project, that is one experience. They do their internship project, that is two experience. Meaning that by the time you are done with capstone and internship project, you have two product management experience to put on your CV. And the two experience can never be the same. Again, I will call some persons here to share their own personal experience of doing their capstone separately from doing their internship. Again, two different experiences that can never be the same, that they can be able to put on their CV with pride that they did product management on those roles. And that makes them, aside from that, it makes it easier for you to get a job, right? You are also better grounded in product management because it's not just all about the job. Because when people say, I'm not getting a job, sometimes I ask them, are you really grounded? Like, are you sure? There are some people that are going through trainings that I know that there are some of my classes, especially some of my online classes, and then this particular student is not serious. Yeah, I know people that are serious. And because we are doing a mature training, I will probably not come and call you, except you are like my very good student that will come and tell you that, Omo, you are not sitting up, or better sit up and let's trash this thing out and know this thing very well, right? So there are some people that are not serious. You know they are not serious at all. So you leave them in their corner, right? They will not shall come and say that Banji did not teach them well, or maybe Theodora or Sheun did not teach them. Nobody's going to come, or Ife did not teach them. You're not come and tell me that now. At least we have done our own part, right? So your own part is to practice after your training, even before the end of your training. I always suggest that you practice even before the training. Practice, practice, practice. Number two, get yourself into an internship experience. Again, typically, if you're a student of Enoverlab, you have access to an internship for 6 to 7 weeks, which even some of them always extend their internship. I know some persons that have been on their project for 3 months now, right? So again, it depends on the kind of product they are working on, right? And the internship is flexible. So it gives you room. It's not like you're stopping your full-time job to come and do the internship. It's an open source internship. So there's room for flexibility and all of that. Or you get a volunteer experience. Say you don't want to maybe go and do a flexible internship. You just want to get volunteer experience, right? Do volunteer. Reach out to people that are building products. Volunteer to be part of their product, right? To help them build their product for 2 months, 3 months. And then practice all your product management skills inside a volunteer role. Right, so practice your product management skills inside a volunteer role or in the internship, environment, so you get to put into practice, right? And let me really say this: it's good to get paid internship, and some persons are very focused on paid internship, and I'm not saying it's bad, but at the same time, if you don't see a paid internship, please just go for a free internship or even a start. Work for somebody for free for a start. Get these experiences. What matters for you is the experience, and like I always say, please don't do anything that extends beyond 4 months at most. 4 months is anything beyond 4 months is already too much, right? 3 to 4 months at most. When it is beyond 4 months, I feel like you're going to relax on that rule. So you want to go into something more serious. Do we get right? Now, finally, what do you do after a product management training? After you have practiced, and you're sure you have practiced, you have gone through like a volunteer experience or internship experience for about 3 to 4 months. Again, it's not compulsory. I just use this yardstick as a average standard, right? Some internship can be 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Again, really depends on the environment that you find yourself. After all of this, I can bet you that it is much more easier to apply for roles. You would have more confidence. You should not be shy at this level because now you have experience. You'd have more confidence to go into job. You have experience that you can put on your CV. You have knowledge, practical knowledge, quote and unquote, practical, where you have done something, you have built a product, or you are involved in building something. So there's now practical knowledge that helps you know that, okay, I know what I'm diving myself into, right? But again, like I said, even with practice, even with doing internship, right? When you get on the job, there are a number of things that you will still learn afresh on the job. So again, that is standard, right? Even with practicing, doing internship, working on projects, volunteer, at the end of the day, there are still some things that you cannot just still learn before the job. You have to get on the job to learn some of those things, right? Things like decision making, things like managing stakeholders. Some of these things have to be learned on the job. It's not something that you can train to learn. It's when you get on the job that you have to figure it out and then learn how to deal with those issues that you meet on the job. As you can see, I've not shared anything super technical in all of this conversation. I've just said basic things, right? And these basic things, I can literally start to trace. If I say, okay, out of persons that I've seen gone through a training and then go to get a job, by the time you start to speak to every person that gets jobs very quickly in product management, you see that they're able to get things running very fast. It means that these people are sharp during trainings, started to practice, get their hands dirty doing stuff. So they have more confidence. You notice that people who are get their hands dirty doing stuff have more confidence. They just go into places with more vibe, right? And they answer questions, right? Any question that they don't know, they will find their way around it and be able to give you something. right? And they go into job roles to do better than someone who goes from one training to another training to another training. So when one person spends, say for example, like we do in Enoverlab now, 10 weeks for training, 6 to 7 weeks for internship, and then you can go out there and start to look for roles. Now, you can look for roles before your internship, and you can get jobs before your internship, but there are factors that matter or that come into play, but you'll be better grounded, which I think is even more important than getting a job, because you can get a job that will frustrate you because you are not properly grounded. That's another thing, right? You can get a job that will frustrate you. You will get the job, all well and good, but then you'll be frustrated on the job because you don't know, you're not grounded. You don't know as much as you think that you know, because you're not properly grounded. So even when you do get a job, right, quickly, again, say you are able to get a job, a product manager role, like really, really fast. Again, some persons, there are factors that influence all of these things. Some persons are able to get their job like super fast before the end of their training. They have a job in their hands already, right? Such kind of persons, I would still advise them to go through an internship and go through a volunteer job, because you get grounded on the job, and the more you have on your hands in the earlier stage, the better. That means the more maybe side gig that you have on your hands, the better, because you have just finished a training. It's not like you are grounded in the career. You don't still know a lot. So you don't need to overhype yourself. You don't still know a lot, right? And like I've said, many things you will learn in product management are going to be figured out on the job. Again, every ideal training will take you through proper fundamentals that would help you be able to do your figuring out on the job. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of figuring out that is going to happen on the job, right? Now, somebody will say, instead of going through a training, if all the figuring out is going to be done on the job, why can't I just go and get the job and then be figuring it out? It cannot fly. Just like Stewart said just now that she was transferred into a product owner role, but she could not make sense of it. So don't jump the gun, right? So just because we have said, you do a lot of figuring out on the job, does not now sideline a training, right? Just like Stewart said, she has to still eventually go through a training for her to understand better. But even after going through a training, I'm still sure Stewart is still doing figuring out on the job. Stewart, can you confirm? So let's make this interactive now. Even after going through a training, were there not still things that you had to figure out on the job?
Oh yes, and there's still a lot I'm figuring out, and
right,
there's still
right. So
I think the training just gives, like you say, more perspective to a lot of things.
Yeah.
But the truth is, a lot of things you learn, especially when you meet different people and you just learn on the job. There's so many things you learn on the job, but that training gives you more insights. And when they are saying some words, it's like product words and all that, you're not confused and you're not throw off balance at the end of the day. But learning on the job is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Stewart. So again, I don't want to talk about, I don't want to dive into, I think some persons are talking about, okay, how do you get a job, right? Getting a job becomes easier when you've gone through a proper training, you have practical experience, it becomes much more easier, right? So when people say, how do I get a job? How do I get a job? The question is, have you gone through a training? One. Second question is, are you grounded? Do you know what you know well? Can you practically do what you know, right? So the moment you have these two things in place, getting a job becomes much more easier, right? Getting the job becomes much more faster. And obviously, when you have support structure, as we all know, Enoverlab is a support structure. The community is a support structure. You can ask questions. I think that the community has been really amazing, right? Sometimes when I check the community and I see the conversation that people have had, I say, oh, more, this is just very good. So when you have support structure, the rest becomes, a little bit more easier. Obviously, that's okay. Now, there's support structure. You've gone through a proper training. You have practical knowledge. Getting a job is going to be much more easier. Typically, you should not spend more time again wasting time at all. You will not need to spend more time wasting so much time, right? So just as we start to round up, these are just the things I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to talk about technical things or talking about. I thought of sharing some ideas around getting a job. I felt that that's not the essence of this conversation, right? The essence of this conversation is not, the focus is not on getting a job. Getting a job is an end result of you knowing the job before even going into the job. Except again, you're like stewards that somebody just, you have leverage, right? For example, now someone like Stewart had leverage coming from a previous role and then promoted into the product manager or product owner role, right? And again, a number of persons have that sort of leverage, right? I know another person like that. Abiodun also have that sort of leverage, promoted into the product manager, product owner role, right? So obviously, there's that leverage that comes in. But aside from that, we are coming in from somewhere really external, right? Your better best is to be grounded. So you give yourself time. That's another thing. Please don't rush don't now let me balance this. Don't over rush your career. Don't slow down your career as well. So it's a balance. Now, what would be an ideal balance? Say you don't know anything about tech at all. If you don't know anything about tech at all, please, I beg you in the name of God, give yourself 6 months of learning and practicing. If you don't know anything about tech at all, just don't rush. Don't cut your throat. Don't overstress yourself. And I'm not saying 6 months is too much, but again, just have a balance, right? Don't try to say you want to get a job. You don't know anything about tech. Maybe some of you are just probably using Slack for the first time. Some persons are just learning about Google Doc. Some persons cannot even create a slide deck or slide presentation or more. Just give yourself 6 months JJly. But let's say you have some technical background. Maybe you studied computer science, or you've worked in a tech company but not in a tech role. Maybe you did like customer success or customer representative in a tech company, but it's a non-technical role. Okay, you probably have some experience, so it should be a lot more easier, right, for persons like that to just get a role within 3 months, 3 to 4 months. Typically, people like that should get a role between 3 to 4 months, right? But if you don't have any technical experience at all, you probably have to give yourself a 6 month, 7 month timeline to really get yourself into tech in particular, generally, not just even product management, tech generally. But when I say get yourself into tech, it's not now taking one course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4, take all the course in Coursera, all the course in Udemy, all the course. Just taking all the course is not going to solve your problem, right? Take one good training, practice, get an internship or volunteer experience, you will get a job. So let me hear from, I'll just call on 2 persons to share as we wrap up. Ibrahim, I want you to share with us. Ibrahim, is Ibrahim still here? I want you to share with us, Ibrahim, Adefajo. I want you to share with us. Okay, good evening. What was the difference in terms of experience? I've never asked you this question before. I'm just asking you right here. So what was the difference in terms of you doing your capstone project and then you now working on your internship? And I think you guys are done with your internship project. It's just to make that product live, right?
Yes.
So can you share with us briefly what was the difference in doing your capstone project and then working with a different team of people doing your internship?
I think the difference is very, very wide. The difference is very, very wide. For example, during capstone projects, you are actually going to do everything by yourself. You are not working with a team. So you are just going to discover a problem, then think of how to solve it, then follow all the product management processes. So, but the internship is quite different. It's just like what you are going to see in real life situation. Managing people, which could be very, very difficult, and then you building a product. And you are working with designers, you are working with developers and other team members. So, and then you have a timeline. Sometimes you have to bring leadership. You have to show leadership. You have to show the other side of product management, which revolve around soft skills. So, and those things actually matters a lot. You won't actually know it if you don't actually, if you are not doing it. You don't know that, oh, some people you have to take responsibility, you have to be able to hold your team together to achieve the particular vision you guys have actually set for yourself. So you have to communicate because I mean nothing must lag behind. You have to ensure that deadlines are met. So it's a whole lot. I mean, learning is just like what you are going to get outside. You are working with a company. So I used to have the phobia of, oh, maybe once I get outside, how do I start? But the internship has actually given me that experience that, oh, there is nothing, even if something will be new, but it's something that, oh, you have actually seen, maybe something more advanced, but it's actually a very, very good, I mean, experience. I mean, learning with a team during the internship. So I would say it's actually a bit more than the capstone project.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ibrahim. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you, Ibrahim, do you feel, again, I want you to be very neutral, right? Do you feel more confident in yourself as a PM compared to when you first finish your capstone project compared to now? As I think you guys have been on your internship for about maybe 9 or 10 weeks or so.
Yes, I feel more confident now because I like we actually worked. I mean, I work with people. I mean, I've if not only working with people, I was just like me leading the team because that's how you have to manage people. I mean, if you really want to achieve something, so it was actually very difficult. It was not that easy, but I mean, it's something that I've been doing before. So I had to, I mean, having leadership and good communication skills is something that, oh, I actually brought it from my profession before. So it's something that I used to do. It actually helped me along the way. So I think it's very, very, very fantastic.
Mm. Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ibrahim. So let me just have one more person also share. Let me see who is here. Is there anybody here that is going through internship that I know right now? Oh, no, that person. Okay. Oh, okay. Obasi. Obasi, I know you guys just started on your internship, but I also like to hear from you. From I know you just started maybe a few weeks back now. So, but I want to hear, looking at your capstone project and then what you just started doing probably in the last 3 weeks or so thereabouts. Can you share with us the difference?
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so initially working on my capstone, just like Ibrahim said, is more like a personal something because you have to form the idea on your own, and then basically everything you are just a team member on your own, doing everything on your own. But then on the internship, you find out that you have to come in term in with real people who are not just static. They have their own ideas, they have their own opinions, and sometimes you just have to agree and then disagree also, which is more complex in a way that it brings in the management skill. You have to learn how to manage people, even when you know that they are lying to your face, but you know you cannot just burst out of anger. You just have to like, okay, just to persuade and then try to make sense out of whatever you are doing with them, knowing that there is a goal for the connection, for the collaboration to get the task done, even if it means going the extra mile. So this internship have really, really like opens my eye in a way that even if I'm going out now to get a role, or if I happen to get a role now, I think it should be more easier for me because literally I have worked with the designers and different faces of people, and then couples with other things that I'm doing. So it's really, really interesting. And just like you said, it's sometimes overwhelming because just have to figure out things on the go. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Right. So, all in all, what do you do after a training again? Practice, practice, practice. This thing sounds simple and sound very basic, but I can confidently tell you that is those basic things are the things that even matter the most many times. Not even the all the big technical grammar or stuff. The basic things. Practice, practice, practice. get yourself into an internship and put yourself into the internship or the volunteer. If you are not doing internship, volunteer for a product, so you get to do like more advanced practicing. Now, after doing all of that, you see that even your confidence to apply for roles become bigger. Now, all of these things I've shared is not straight line. Like I said, you can get a job earlier. You can get a job like steward. Somebody just promotes you into the product manager role. There are different strokes for different folks. But the most important thing is that you get yourself quickly into it, right? You are practicing, you are working on projects. Let me throw this to Stewart. Right? Stewart is not Stewart did not okay, let me just do like this. Stewart, have you worked on other projects outside of your core job?
Yes. So I've always worked in like the financial institution, and so I really wanted to get more knowledge about products. So I volunteered for a product role in a different company that had something different, like solving a different kind of problem that had nothing to do with finance or anything that has to do with the industry of finance. So, but it was just interesting learning from them how they do their own things compared to how it's done here, like in the finance world, and that's just
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So, as you can see, typically, again, Stewart is not like an Enoverlab person per se in terms of training, right? But I've known her in the Enoverlab community for quite a while. She has been a very active member of the community. But what am I trying to say here is just to show you that even after your training, even when you get your first job as a product manager, I personally would still suggest that you contribute into other projects by this side. Typically, when you contribute into other projects, it also helps you really expand your knowledge. So, you have somebody building something, contribute 3 months, 2 months, just by the side. It won't affect your full-time job, even if you've gotten a product manager job, right? Contributing to other roles, right? I think me and Ibrahim still talk about something recently about contributing on another role like that while he's trying to, get a product manager role at the same time. But in all, when you finish a training, this is where I would personally suggest that you focus your energy on even before getting a role, right? But the interesting thing is that you can do all these 3 things at the same time. That's the beauty about if you are dedicated to the career. So meaning that while you are trying to practice, you are doing maybe an internship and a volunteer role, you are also applying for roles. So you don't necessarily have to wait till you have done an internship before you apply for a job. Again, you don't necessarily have to do that, right? So you practice, you get an internship or a volunteer, and then you apply. You can do all 3 at the same time. For example, now, I always tell people, personally, I always tell people to start applying for roles even before they finish their training. So start to apply, not necessarily because you want to get a job, but more because you want to understand how product management interviews are done. So start to apply for product manager roles. So you start to see how product manager interviews are done. So let's open the floor for questions. Right, I can see quite a number of conversations in the chat section. So if you have questions, you can raise up your hand, or let me just hand over to Blessing. Blessing, over to you so that you can lead the way. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure having this conversation. I hope you have gotten 1 or 2 things from everything that has been shared. Please don't what's the word now? Is it downgrade or downplay these ideas that I've shared? They might sound very basic, but the basic things, a lot of times, those basic things are the things that move the needle a lot of times. They might sound very basic and simple. Oh, it's not just to practice, it's not to do internship. It's not just to do internship. It is hard, right? But yeah, just chipping that in. All right, Blessing, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Banji, for this insightful session. Thank you so much. We have hands raised, and we will just be taking the 2 hands raised. That's Akase and Juliana. So Akase will be going first, then Juliana will be going second because it's almost 8:30, and some people have other things to do, and some people reached out to me that they are in class, that's in overlap class, and they would like to so yeah. Let's have Akase first. Hi Akase, please go ahead to ask your question.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Please, I just need a clarification. The question is directly to Mr. Banji. So, it's a personal question, though. So, after the training, and we've done capstone projects, well, personally, there's this fear that I've not really done enough, because even sometimes, even when I go online, I see some PM roles. They are telling me there are some roles they are stating, and to me, I think there's this fear in me that I've not really learned a lot to apply for this role. So how can I overcome this fear? Like, how possible is it to overcome this fear? Because it's really disturbing. Thank you.
Muted now. Okay, thank you. And Banji, over to you.
Okay.
I think she's talking about
Yeah.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So again, like I've said, I think I shared it earlier that you typically have imposter syndrome. Again, it is normal. Like I said, it's normal for you to feel like, oh, do I know enough? Which would then take you into the spiral of trying to now go and learn and learn and learn and learn, right? And when we have said that, you can learn on the job. So typically, there are two sides of the coin. One side of the coin is employers don't even know what they are looking for in a product manager. Carry that one and hold that one side of the coin, right? Some employers, not all employers, right? Some employers don't know what they are looking for in a product manager, right?
Yeah.
Somebody might tell you they are looking for a 5-year product manager, and you see their JD and you're like, what is this person asking? And one person will tell you they are looking for a 1-year product